All right, members of the board. On that note, as we look forward to opening the brand new school and finally get here to our 3-site plan, tonight I want to present a little bit about what would be the personnel impact and how we plan to run our 3 school sites into the 22-23 year. Very exciting. Slide. So first off, the 3-site plan is a transition, going from, two school sites to 3 sites. I had the opportunity of actually talking with I was at the Kiwanis meeting today, and I was talking to various alumni that have seen all different kinds of iterations of this small school district. So one thing I like to remind my staff and our community of is that this is a transition, but it's definitely not the first time that Hermosa Beach has had to transition from 1 site to 2 sites or 2 sites to 3 sites. It's been getting done for over 100 years, and we're going to get it done this time around as well too, and it's very exciting. A big piece to note is, who is the principal? And so right now the Hermosa Vista will be under the Hermosa View and Vista principal. From a site standpoint, this may seem unusual, a principal over 2 sites. From a grade level standpoint, it's actually still a relatively small school. Most elementary principals are either TK through 6, like in some cases, or TK through 5. And in this case, our Hermosa View and Vista principal will be TK through 4. And then finally, there just are some facility and student needs that we can't get around. And if you go to multiple sites, you're going to require additional staffing. Slide. So here's a basic timeline of the move. As I described this phased move in, where you see TK2 moving to Hermosa View, grades 3-4 moving to Hermosa Vista. And then we'll note the district staff moving to Hermosa Vista. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. And then the start of the new school year. Slide. So this was the pre-Measure S configuration. We have during COVID, prior to COVID, you had Hermosa View School was TK through 2, and the grades 4 through 8. And you see that distribution of principal and assistant principal at Hermosa Valley. You see that we were at a 0.5 counselor, or which the counselor split days between Hermosa View and Hermosa Valley. There was an administrative assistant. Then you can see kind of the support staff going forward. One thing to notice that the district office staff was located at Hermosa Valley School historically. Slide. So this is a breakdown of the 3-site plan. I will call out the greatest hits highlight. There you see the final resting place of the grade levels. That distribution of grade levels is an old plan that goes back to the beginning of Measure S, where you have TK2 at Hermosa View, grades 3-4 at Hermosa Vista, and grades 5-8 at Hermosa Valley. There you see a breakdown of the number of classrooms in order to support those students, which is more than enough in order to support our current enrollment and projected. And then this is where you see a breakdown of administration, where Principal Tanita will be over Hermosa View and Vista, and Principal Bledsoe over Hermosa Valley. Moving to administrative support, the assistant principal, Hillary Overbeck, will be split. She will be at Hermosa Vista for 2 days and at Hermosa Valley for 3 days. And she will be the assistant principal of both Hermosa View Vista and Hermosa Valley. This is also not an unusual configuration. There are many school districts that split an assistant principal across 2 school sites. For example, in Redondo, there was an elementary principal who was split 50% across Washington Elementary and Alta Vista, just to name a local example. For counseling, Troy Boucher, will be the counselor of both View and Vista as the elementary level counselor, and Cassie Riley will continue on as the counselor of Hermosa Valley. One of the reasons for that split is because there are more students at Hermosa Valley, and Hermosa Valley holds the middle school, where we tend to find an escalation of individual counseling needs. Finally, you'll see there's an administrative assistant at each of the sites. This will require an increase +1 FTE, which I'll talk about in a second. You see a distribution of health support, which I will also discuss in a minute. And then you see the attendance clerk. There will be an attendance clerk at Hermosa View and Hermosa Valley. That position will be staffed 1 hour per grade level that they hold. So in the case of Hermosa Valley, for example, the grades 5 through 8, that will be a 4 hour per day position, which will provide support in the front office as well as support of attendance needs. There will not be an attendance clerk at Hermosa Vista. The reason being is that the administrative assistant will be over 2 grade levels. And as you see below there, we'll have present the entire district office staff. They just have simply less attendance and less people to work with. And at Hermosa View, there will be an attendance clerk, and that will be staffed also as a 4 hour position in relation to, 3 hours. Sorry, thanks. A 3 hour position. Yeah, Lou Paula. Yeah, 3 hours in relation to the distribution of grade levels. The question the most actually common question I've gotten is what will we do about library? I call it the Heather Meyer plan, which is whatever Heather Meyer wants to do. So the tentative plan right now is that the position at Hermosa Vista, the library would be split between the Valley and the Hermosa View librarian, providing a day each in order to support the library needs for grades 3 and 4. I can definitely tell you that is one that will probably evolve with our staffing. And we look forward to having Heather Meyer tell us what to do. And then finally, you see there the district office staff. We will be relocated to Hermosa Vista. Yes, we will no longer be located at Hermosa Valley, or as I'm sure my staff is disappointed to learn, South Park. I will miss those porta potties though. So the purpose behind putting the district office at Hermosa Vista is twofold. One, there's space there, so we can start there. 2 is, as you can see, that Hermosa Vista is a split site. So you have a principal who is administratively supporting over Hermosa View and Hermosa Vista, and an assistant principal supporting over Hermosa Valley and Hermosa Vista. So there will be a strong administrative presence at Hermosa Vista with the district office staff. Sylvia and I are both credentialed administrators, and once upon a time, we're both principals, as well as we have Paula, who's just really tough, and Christine, who's just really nice. So we think the combination of the 4 of us will provide great administrative cover, and we look forward to doing things like ballet. I have this whole plan about running the playground, so it'll be exciting and fun. And then we also have our district office team, including our business technician, our data technician, Vicky, and the great Robin Honda, who you all know. So I think that there will be lots of support at Hermosa Vista, and I think it's a good use of our resources to distribute ourselves there to make sure that that staff and those students in that community feel supported. Slide. So here are some other factors: maintenance and operations, food services, new supervisors, special education, enrichment teachers. These are all conundrums that we are currently addressing and how to split them across 3 sites, things like travel, things like more facilities, things like special needs. We are figuring it out. We have a plan. We think that we will have a good plan in place as we start, and we will be agile as we continue to adjust that plan in order to settle into the 3 sites. Slide. There's no way around certain staffing increases. For example, as already stated, we'll need to increase an administrative assistant and an attendance clerk. I'm sure you're thinking, well, did you say you're going to increase 2 attendance clerks? Yes, but they are part-time positions, so it's the equivalent of 1 FTE or 1 full-time employment. This is also potentially offset by the increase of the administrative assistant, depending on who is the administrative assistant. The increase in the licensed vocational nurse or an LVN is actually not necessarily completely due to the ThreeSite solution, but actually an increase in student health needs. And we have been temporarily staffing an LVN position in order to support our student needs currently. So this just aligns well with what our current student makeup is. Maintenance and operations, we will need to increase +1 because there's just simply another building to clean. And food services is in relation to the additional facility, as well as that next year we will be required to serve breakfast as part of the, what is it, USDA free food wall. Thanks. And then the current projected increase to the budget is $175,000 based off of these FTE increases, which we will bring to the board as those transactions occur. Slide. Great. I'll take any questions.
I think my internet just went off. Apologies, everyone. Questions, starting with Quentin.
I saw numbers and I couldn't help but break out my calculator. I was just looking at the ratio of students to classrooms to sort of get a sense of capacity usage. And what I think I saw, if we went back a couple of slides, is that the Vista campus has, I don't know, the highest ratio, if you like, in other words, the least, I guess, excess capacity. Is that right? Like, I'm curious, which of our sites, when this is all said and done with 1,250 students, will have, how much spare capacity will there be? What can we think of as a district for enrollment as our, upper goal, in order partly to offset some of these extra admin costs?
Can you repeat the question?
Well, I guess
again?
how many more students do you think like we can accommodate in these campuses as we try to grow as a district? And
most of Vista can accommodate 510 students, and Hermosa Valley can accommodate well over, I would say, at least 1,200 if I had to guess. And Hermosa View could probably accommodate well over 600.
Okay.
So I know the Hermosa Vista capacity off the top of my head was the EIR. But
you say 1,200 for Valley? That sounds really high because we feel crowded now, and I don't think we're at 1,200 there.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I know it feels crowded, but I think that like we have currently bungalows on that campus. There's 31 classrooms. Is that
35,
accurate?
I think is what the slide said.
35 classrooms. So depending on what your student to teacher ratio is, which could evolve, 30 times 35. What's the math?
Yeah. Okay.
Wow. I'm almost like right on. Like, that's pretty good, Jason.
All right. Good.
Nice. All right. I think we're a ways away from that though. You mean like, and I think a healthy, like a goal target enrollment should be, right now, to try to crack over 1,300. I think that should be our goal. And I think that our facilities are well in range to handle that load. And I also think that the makeup of our campuses could continually evolve based off of our enrollment.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Jen?
Yeah. How do you see Miss Tanita? Do you see her going like every day, kind of going back and forth?
No. Sorry. It wasn't that abrupt of an answer. No. We see her on a day distribution, and that day distribution being aligned with Hillary Overbeck as well as ourselves about supporting that campus.
Yeah, I have a few questions.
Yeah.
So I get asked about library a lot, the most too. And this is very helpful to look at. Will the library be, and you don't have to answer all these questions now, but things that are coming up to think about.
Yeah.
On the days that Miss Meyer, or I'm forgetting the name of the Miss Kelly, or whoever the Valley Library clerk is. What? Miss Terrell?
Yeah.
are not at Valley or View, will those libraries, or whoever is not at Vista, because it'll be 3 days a week, will those libraries still be accessible to students before, after school, lunch, things like that? As I said, not a
Yeah, that's a great question.
Something to
And
think about.
So we're gonna place Paula in the library. You mean like, and so
that was going to be my vote as well.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, she works the books. Doesn't that translate over to?
Yes, it definitely
Yeah,
translates.
okay. All right.
Definitely translates.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and we'll definitely take a look at what we can do with noon supervisors and or especially for the unstructured time.
Yeah, and that's what it really is just making sure the kids don't, destroy the library or
Yeah.
each other.
That's great feedback for us.
Yeah, the other piece that I get asked about a lot is STEAM lab and Idea lab and how those are going to be split as well. Once again, not something you have to answer now, just feedback that I've received.
We do actually have a plan and are working on a split. So like they'll have that access and we'll have 3-4 access, and we're working with Ms. Gill and Mr. Kaplan on a distribution of days that work to make sure those students are getting access.
Okay. Next question is, where do you see the district office staff actually physically being at Vista?
Yeah,
are they in one of the classrooms? Are they in the NPR? Like,
no,
I understand they're on campus.
The classrooms is a great question because the NPR will continue to be utilized by likely Star, and the front office will be used by the administrative staff as well as Sylvia, and then my office with the conference room will be located in what is currently a TK room. It's Ali Peng's room. And then the district office staff will be located in the, the science, what do they call it? It's like the flex room. Yeah, because it's a very large room. The reason behind that is that it's the first rooms if you go down the hall. So someone trying to access the district office still has to go through the front office.
Yeah.
But they're the first rooms. They don't have to go deep into the school in order to access, which is kind of like if you think about like the Hermosa Valley setup back when the district office was in the front. So not the same, but similar.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you. And my last question kind of builds off of Quentin and Jen's question, which I think this is what it might be trying to get at. So if your kid is at View or Vista, your principal is Principal Tanita. So you have a problem, you have a question, you have a concern, no matter where she happens to be physically that day, that's your point of contact. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Steven.
No further questions. I think in terms of the board covered a lot of the ones that I was going to ask. I just want to say thank you, particularly the district office. It's not lost on us that the circumstances and makeup of you having to sort of make do in current times. Staff with the moves over the last couple of years. I mean, just with Measure S, it's not lost on us the amount of effort that it takes to move and that sort of stuff, and to the students and the parents. I mean, it has been a bit of musical chairs the last couple of years, and again, but it's really exciting because there's light. The light is very much, as we just heard from Erickson Hall and the team. I mean, it's just super exciting to think about starting this new school with the new schools and to have the facilities and the opportunity for these rooms, whereas before we were filling, NPRs with libraries, or we were filling, there was a need for this, there is a need for this, and the growth opportunities, for the district it provides. So just a lot of thank you and excitement around that.
Thank you.
I have 2 sets of questions, and I was going back and reflecting on the enrollment data projections, which are a moving target, but thinking through where our TK grows over the next 3 years. I think up 23, 24, we'll have a fairly large class of TK, and then moving that out 2 years. So we're looking 4 to 5 years out right now. We'll see a fairly large class coming into the Vista campus with that. So one concern is like putting in offices. We've moved our district staff in all sorts of places over the past 5-6 years, but 5 years out, that's like, I am curious for us to do those projections of like, what does our space look like then at Vista versus the other campuses, and the possibility that we'll have to keep moving. And then tangential to that is I appreciate keeping district staff accessible to the public, but I'm also concerned with the science flex space, specifically designed as a science space, and the emphasis we have in science in the district of how that classroom gets used. And so what are the features of that classroom that might be evident in other classrooms that could also be used?
Well, one thing is there's a second one, and it's on the second floor. So based off the makeup, like that space will not be lost to our students. They will still have that space. It's just on floor 2. And then as far as the facilities in that room, it really, there are no specialized facilities other than it literally just is a bigger space. The intention, as I understand behind it, was that it could serve as a multi-class space for joint participation and like STEAM and such. We're not abandoning that by any means. It's just like it's going to be used in that space. And then I'm going to guess that, COVID and cohort mixing, that will be beyond that at that point, so we can utilize that appropriately. So all that still goes forward as far as the utilization of it. We just simply had 2 of them, which was good planning. On the point about like the 5 years out, I've talked to my staff about this, and I'll share the board. I do think that let's liken Hermosa Beach School District to what it is. It is one school. It just happens to be one school on 3 sites. So if you were to go to any school's campus and you were to watch the iterations of where things were located over a 5-year period, you would see a tremendous amount of movement, whether that be from a new administrator or growth in enrollment, but classrooms are constantly moving and staff are constantly in flux. No classroom is permanent. It just so happens that makeup takes place over 3 sites now in our case. And so my point is that we really cannot think of the 3-site plan as a permanent fixture. We have to continuously evolve with the enrollment and programs. And so I have no doubt that the district office could likely move again based off of student needs. I have no doubt that we will look at certain programs and they may move, or their space may rearrange after school, before school daycare. So we really, I think that like when we go into this coming year, we're going to learn a lot. The reason I know that is this year we learned a lot in inhabiting a new campus, right? Like, and there were so many takeaways, so many things that we didn't, intend, and we planned, I think, as best as we could, but at the same time, like we have to continuously evolve. So I have no doubt that within, a multi-year period that we will have to plan and project and try to anticipate probably relatively significant changes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sorry to kind of bird dog this one, but I'm just thinking back over the amount of time on the board and the amount of money we've had to spend to like appropriately get facilities ready for district staff, right? Whether it was first redoing the whole Valley site place so we could adjust teachers' lounges and space for teachers to do prep and then different staff, and then having to redo the South Park space. So that was appropriate for folks to be able to have those kind of conversations. I think at some point, we projected out, reflecting back off of the Measure S money today, we don't have any money being spent on district facilities right now, which is the right thing, I think, given all the concerns. If and when the $5 million comes from the state, I think we do have to look at Valley needs and what's appropriate, because we're going to keep throwing money to move a district staff, right? And it's just going to be a continual cost that we'll have to do, as we need to make sure we have a conference room space. Like, there is needs for a district staff to be able to be appropriate in the work they need to do. So it's just a comment for the board that I think we should look at this as a way to make sure that the district can do their jobs.
Yeah, no, that's good feedback, and we'll definitely take that into consideration. We're a cheap date right now. We'll take a flush toilet, honestly. So that'll be a good step. But yeah, point well taken, and we'll examine the cost of what it takes to re-inhabit. I mean, the South Park space, as I understand, when we had, was like there was not much there, so we had to do a lot of work in order to inhabit it. Hopefully, with the transition to Vista, because a lot of that stuff is built in, thanks to Simon and his team's work for infrastructure. But that is good feedback that we should really be looking carefully at that, especially when considering those future monies.
Mm-hmm. And just last, thank you for that, Christine and Simon. I keep losing internet, so I don't know if that's affecting things for you all, but my camera just keeps going in and out. So for anybody watching, I'm still here. I'm just on a mic. Okay. With that, I think we'll close down comment on that and move to the next board report.